Hey friend, it's GM Jim from Wizards and Wordslingers. Yes, as you can see, I have finally escaped the forest. Do you like chaos at your table? Do you like it when the world flips upside down because something bonkers just happened in the session that changes everything? I have a game mechanic for you to steal today, and if you are into the waves of chaos brought by the deck of many things, then you're going to be into this. Maybe, I'll get to that later. First, a brief history on the deck. It's a long-known magic item that dates all the way back to 1975 in D&D's first ever supplement, Greyhawk. There's a certain reverence to it when discussed. Players and DMs in the know are aware of the unpredictability of this item. It's long been seen as something to introduce to a high-level party at a campaign's end when its undeniable mayhem magic can't derail a campaign. Cards can make you rich, poor, hunted, imprisoned in an astral jail, or lots of other wild and random things. People who know this item have a healthy respect for it. But I come before you today to advise you of another chaos engine far more powerful than this puny deck of many things. A mechanic of such great importance that this will be seen as the ultimate randomizer. Plus, the players will probably enjoy it much more than an actual deck of many things, which has enough punitive cards that there's no such thing as a safe pull from the full deck. But you never know. Last time I encountered the deck was as a player in a tournament-style combat, where certain milestones in combat triggered a pull from the deck. Over the combat I pulled, I think, 5 cards, and they were all good stuff. I got new abilities, tons of gold, and free XP mid-combat. I've gotten off track here because we're not really trying to discuss the deck of many things. What we're talking about today is a little rule I'm stealing from Dropout TV's Dimension 20's Brendan Lee Mulligan's frenetic die-hard Fast and Furious actual play mashup Never Stop Blowing Up. It's 10 episodes of high-octane 1980s and 1990s action goodness, and the season just wrapped up a few months back. No spoilers, but it's cars and guns and submarines and helicopters and seductive spies and secret agencies. As someone who watches a lot of Dimension 20, this has to be one of the top seasons. If you're looking for crunchy actual play, this is not it. If you're looking for high shenanigans, comedy, tabletop improv, it doesn't get any better than this. Never Stop Blowing Up might be the best D20 show, although The Ravening War was excellent too. Real quick, could I get a like and subscribe below? It only takes a second and it helps us both out. Make sure to click all next to notifications. Also click the join button to get exclusive perks when you join my channel. Anyway, the game system itself is a version of Kids on Bikes with homebrewed extras and changes thrown in. Whenever a player fails a roll, they collect something called a turbo token. When they get these tokens, they can spend them to increase other rolls to turn failure into success. But they can also spend these turbo tokens on PC upgrades between sessions. And late in the season, the players unlock an ability to do something very special on a Nat 20, and this is the rule I'm inviting you to steal. On a Nat 20, you can, instead of taking the result of the roll, simply become the GM for 60 seconds. On the show, they throw a big digital countdown on the background and actually switch chairs. No spoilers, but it happened more than once and was high energy bonkers from start to finish. The player who assumes the GM role spits as much new exposition as they can until the timer clicks down to 0, with everyone cheering wildly the entire time. Incredibly fun. And Brennan sits in his seat, smiling and nodding. Then after the 60 seconds is up, he resumes his GM chair and he proceeds to honor everything the players said during that 60 seconds. Doesn't matter how bananas the players' edicts were, Brennan makes it real. Now let's talk about how this would work at your table, because this is no small homebrew. This is potentially much more campaign-breaking than a Deck of Many Things card, because the player could say whatever they want. They could say 50 years have passed, or later that day a Spelljammer ship lands in town and everyone gets on board off to the stars. The way I see it, a GM has 2 sliders here to manage this. One is by making it hard to trigger. Letting a player have a spin in the GM chair for 60 seconds is maybe too great a prize for a simple Nat 20. That would happen 5% of the time, which means it's going to happen. I can't remember a D&D session I've ever played where there wasn't at least one Nat 20 rolled at some point. So maybe you say it triggers on 2 consecutive Nat 20s from the same player. That also happens, but it's much more rare. Or maybe you say it procs when there is a nat 1 followed by a nat 20 or whatever. There are plenty of ways you can play with the numbers to make it statistically rare to achieve. You could also put an upfront cost to it. The GM could say, if you get 2 nat 20s in a row, then you get 60 seconds in the GM chair. But also know that assuming the chair will cause your most valuable magic item to disappear. Or that doing it will immediately give 3 levels of exhaustion to the whole party. Or that the edicts will be treated like a wish spell and could be twisted based on wording or other weird magical stuff. Whatever it is, becoming God for 60 seconds has a penalty or cost to it. The other slider to manage this rule is by the GM retaining a veto power. Maybe when the player inhabits the chair, their power is not absolute and is kept within reasonable limits. The GM can set clear boundaries on behavior like no auto-killing the BBEG, no finding magic items more valuable than 10k gold each, etc. Once the GM resumes their chair, they can say, okay, these things you said happened, but these things you said actually didn't. If you're the kind of GM who doesn't like the deck of many things because of the elevated chaos level, then keeping veto power will help safeguard your campaign from being chewed apart from the inside out. Now obviously this isn't as much fun as going whole hog. When you see it on Dimension 20, it is a wild segment. Everyone is cheering and screaming, and the wildest part is that Brennan treats it all as canon. Such a fun rule to steal. Now let's talk about how you facilitate this as a GM. My best advice for you there would probably be hold on tight and try not to fall off. If you're going big time yes and allowing anything to happen during that 60 seconds, then be prepared for whatever. Your BBEG might die, that village previously in peril might miraculously be totally fine going forward. It could be anything like a slew of wish spells. Experienced players know how to use wish as a problem-solving spell without being a campaign-ending spell. So the same conversation you as a GM would have with a player of a wizard PC who just got to level 17 and selected wish, that's the same conversation you would have with a table looking to implement this 60 seconds as GM rule. It's perfectly reasonable to have a consensus around not using these powers to break everything. Like Peter Parker's Uncle Ben said, with great power comes great multiverse or something, I don't know, I forget. If you're worried about what will happen when the player is done and you have to resume the chair, I get it. How do I cope if the player just changed everything about the campaign world and now I have no idea what's supposed to happen next? If that's a concern, do the 60 seconds before a break, or at the end of a session. When the player hits those 2 nat 20s in a row, or whatever you decide is the trigger, you don't have to let them shift over to the GM chair right that second. You can save it until the end of the evening. Then the player does their thing and breaks apart your carefully constructed game world. And now the GM has a whole week or 2 until the next session to carefully consider how to move things forward. I usually try to time big swings, plot twists, and reveals right at the end of the session so I'll have prep time to smooth the rough edges. Again, let me say, this is definitely not the right mechanic for everyone. It's probably wise to demo it first during a one-shot or near the end of a mini-campaign. Whatever you need to do to ease into this is probably smart. Also, if you know the players at your table like they're old friends, you have a good idea what they might do when given this ultimate power. I don't know if I would recommend implementing this with a table full of acquaintances or strangers. There's got to be a certain level of trust here if this is going to work and not immediately break everything into teeny pieces. If and when you try this at your table, I would love to hear about the chaos. Was it fun chaos or chaotic chaos? Sound off in the comments below if you think this is something that interests you. Because I'm GM Jim, you're looking to spice up your game, and I think we just became best friends.
What? Did we just become best friends? Yup!
Until next time, go try weird and wild stuff at your table because it's all in the name of fun. Now go out there and have some fun.